The last two topics that we'll be covering for this subject is capital budgeting, long-term investments, and then the cost of capital. The coverage of capital budgeting is in chapters 5. I mean, the part of the text, chapter 5 and chapter 6. Okay, chapter 5 and chapter 6. And then for the cost of capital, it's in, I forgot the, not chapter 9, okay? I think it's chapter 9. All right, so today we're going to discuss chapters 5 and 6. We'll go through this very quickly, okay? So what is capital budgeting all about? Okay, capital budgeting is all about coming up with the decision whether investing in a long-term project is feasible or not. So it's different from OPEX. OPEX is operating expenditure versus CAPEX, capital expenditure. A CAPEX, guys, CAPEX investment will involve several operating periods. So it will benefit several operating periods, not only the current operating period, not only 1 year. So oftentimes this will require a huge amount of capital outlay. On the other hand, CAPEX, guys, is only for that specific year. Expenses like transportation, utilities, they form part of what we call OPEX, or operating expenditures. Now, when a company decides whether to invest in a long-term project or not, they will have to come up with measures. And one very important measure is what we call net present value, NPV. Okay, we know that for a project to be feasible, it has to have a positive net present value. And on the other hand, if it's a negative net present value, then we reject the project. So that's the main rule, guys, as far as using NPV as a basis for decision making is concerned. Okay, so when you're comparing projects, you always choose those projects that give you the highest net present value per peso invested. Okay, of course there are other techniques by which we assess a project, but let's continue. Okay, so other measures that's used involve the accounting rate of return, the profitability index, IRR, which I'll be discussing in a while. But net present value, as you know, guys, is computed by discounting your cash flows. So it's important to understand that when you do net present value analysis, you are dealing with cash flows. We do not compute the net present value of income. Okay, we're not looking at the net income, but rather we're looking at cash flows. That's the measure that we use in order to determine if a project is feasible or not. Okay. If you can see here, guys, a survey was conducted. This was in, when was this? 2001. Okay, 2001. Which among the different metrics used in capital budgeting do CFOs use? Okay, and we see here that it's a tie between IRR and NPV. Okay, so CFOs make use of IRR and NPV almost more than three-fourths of the time. So for Payback, it's just almost 60%, and Profitability Index just a measly 12%. Okay, this is the accounting rate of return, and it's used 20% of the time. So what's popular among CFOs? It's more the IRR and the net present value. Okay, there are 3 points that we need to remember about net present value. The first is, as it's stated here, net present value is very consistent with the time value of money. We know that 1 peso today is worth more than a peso tomorrow, okay, because money has cost. Okay, you can invest 1 peso now, and tomorrow it will be bigger than 1 peso. Okay, so that's the fundamental principle of net present value. It recognizes the time value of money. Hence, for net present value, what we put in the computation are discounted cash flows. When you say discounted, I mean we convert it to present values and then add them. We do not add cash flows that belong to different time periods. Okay. Second is that net present value depends on forecasted cash flows and the weighted average cost of capital or opportunity cost of capital. You cannot compute for the net present value without your forecasted cash flows, neither your opportunity cost of capital. Both of these are needed in order to derive the net present value. So number one, forecasted cash flows. Since we're looking at the effect, since we're looking at the projected cash flows, how much will this project or long-term project generate over the years, then we're actually looking at forecasted cash flow. Okay, in net present value analysis or in general in capital budgeting analysis, the past is history. Wala nang say-say yun. Okay, they are what we call sunk costs. So any cost done in the past are no longer relevant as far as capital budgeting is concerned. Everything has to do with future. Okay, so you project the future revenues, you project the future cost, you project all of these things, come up with the an income statement, and then you convert it into cash flows. Note, we don't use the net income after tax in computing for the net present value. Rather, we use cash flows. As you know, cash flow is king. Okay. Third, because present values are all measured in today's dollars, you can add them up. Okay, so we already learned about this. Since the net present value of A is the value today, then we can add the net present value of A and the net present value of B or C or D. Okay, if you have different projects, then we can add the net present values of those projects, because net present value, guys, as the name suggests, is the value at this point in time. Okay, so we can now sum up all values that are pegged at this time frame. Okay, so let's continue. What are the other measures? There are other measures like accounting rate of return or book rate of return and the payback period. The accounting rate of return is simply how much is the net income after tax divided by the assets used for the it's like TATO, right? Book rate of return is just like your total asset turnover, because the formula for total asset turnover is although we're using sales over total assets, okay, here the numerator is net income after tax, which is similar to the ROA, return on assets, or this is what we call book rate of return. Okay. Aside from, now the disadvantage of this is that it does not consider the time value of money. Okay, hindi discounted to mga measures na to. That's the main weakness of the accounting rate of return or the return on assets. Another measure is payback. Payback tells us how long it will take us to recover the investments. Okay, take a look at this. You have project A, the initial investment is 2,000. So you have here 500, 500, 5,000. Now comparing project A, B, C, okay, in terms of payback, project C is the best among these three investments. Why? Because you'll be able to recover your initial investments of 2,000, okay, ahead of the others. So in fact, for project C, you'll be able to recover your investments at the second year, okay, ahead of B, and much way ahead of A, because project A will be recovered. The initial investment of project A will be recovered already on year 3. Okay, for project C, already 1,800 was recovered at the end of year 1, and then just a little more to recover the amount in year 2. Okay, so that's the payback period. The only disadvantage of payback period is that this does not take into consideration the time value of money. Okay, since we're adding the cash flows that belong to different time frames. So an improvement of this is what we call the discounted payback. Okay, for the discounted payback, we do not add the original cash flows, but rather we convert these cash flows Sorry about this. We convert these cash flows into their present value, and that's what we that's what we compute. Discounted payback period. We'll have a discussion of this, an example of this later. Okay. So how about the internal rate of return? Okay. Suffice it to say, guys, that before, when we compute for the internal rate of return, it has to be trial and error. Okay, it has to be iteration, because the formula is that you're going to compute IRR so that the net present value is equal to 0. So how do you do that? How do you compute for the IRR here? Well, before it used to be by trial and error, but now since you have so many softwares already, you can already compute this automatically. Okay, but what's important here is that the IRR is that rate of return where the net present value is equal to 0. Okay, so if you compute for the net present value of a project at a discount rate equal to IRR, it will give you an answer equal to 0. So the IRR is that rate of return where the net present value is equal to 0. Okay, the IRR is okay because it takes into consideration the time value of money. So how is decision made by IRR? Take a look at this diagram. Now, we know that for the net present value, decision is made when the net present value is positive, then the project is feasible. Otherwise, we reject the project because it's not feasible. For IRR, take a look at this graph. This is what you call the Npv profile. So on the y-axis, you have the net present value. On the x-axis, you have your discount rate or your weighted average cost of capital. Okay, take a look at this. Now, you notice that this Npv profile, okay, it touches the x-axis here at 28.08, which is your IRR. How do we know this is the IRR? At 28.08, the net present value is equal to 0. Okay, so by definition, the internal rate of return is that rate of return where your net present value is equal to 0. Okay, so what's the decision rule? If the IRR, okay, if you have an IRR, any weighted average cost of capital that's lower than your IRR, okay, means that we accept the project. Why? Because to the left of the IRR, guys, you notice that the net present values are all positive. Okay, so in this area, the net present values are positive. They're above the origin. They're above the 0 axis. Okay, but if the weighted average cost of capital is higher than 28.08, okay, for example, it's 40%. Okay, 40%, guys, is this one. The Npv is negative. Okay, so the basis is always if the IRR is greater than the weighted average cost of capital, then okay, okay yung project natin. On the other hand, if the weighted average cost of capital is, if your IRR is less than your WACC, okay, IRR is less than your WACC, these points, no? Ito yung mga ano natin, ito yung mga WACC natin na greater than IRR, then we reject the project because it will yield a net present value that's negative. Okay? All right. Now, when there's a conflict between Npv and IRR, we say that it's always the Npv that prevails. Always choose the Npv. Kasi ang Npv is the more theoretically correct way of computing. Yung IRR kasi may mga assumptions siya which might not be necessarily, which might be very restrictive. Okay, so when there's a conflict between Npv and IRR, always choose Npv. Now, here below, sometimes you might need to, sorry, okay. Now take a look at this. This is a case where you have multiple IRRs. So you notice here, guys, here, there's only one IRR. Only one. It touches the x-axis only once. Now, there's a situation where you might have more than one IRR or two. I haven't seen a cash profile which has 3 IRRs. I've seen only 2. Okay, when does this happen? Okay, take a look at the cash flows here. So C sub O, the initial investment is negative 30, and then 10 up to year 9, and then you have here at year 10, you have negative 65. Okay, so when you have a cash flow where there is a negative cash flow after your initial investment, for example, it can be anywhere from C1 up to cash year 1 up to year 10, then you will have multiple IRRs. So in this cash flow, diba, negative 30 yung simula, 10 yung after year 1 hanggang year 9, and then at the end, on the year 10, you have negative 65. Okay, you have a negative 65 at the end of the project. So that will mean that most probably you'll have multiple IRRs, okay? And the multiple IRRs here are 3.5% and 19.54%. Okay, and so what decision do we have here? The decision is that for any weighted out, for any WACC that's high, where your NPV is positive, then the project is okay. So 3.5 guys, 3.5% IRR up to 19.54. Okay, in this discount rates, your NPV is positive. Therefore, for a WACC that's either greater than 3.5 and less than 19.54, then the project is acceptable. If the WACC is less than 3.5, in this case here, guys, then that means the net present value is negative, so we will reject that project. If the IRR is greater than 19.54, then also here, guys, we say that we reject the project. Okay, so for multiple IRRs, we have to determine what's the range of the allowed weighted average cost of capital that will allow us to accept the project. Okay, otherwise, guys, the rest, like in this case, less than 3.5 and greater than 19.54, that means that we reject the capital project because they will yield net present values that are less than 0. Okay, and lastly, guys, the mutually exclusive projects. We say that there are 2 types of projects: independent projects and mutually exclusive. When projects are independent, the choice of one project does not necessarily negate the other one. So, kunyari maraming projects, pag lahat sila positive yung net present value, then we can choose all of them. Ang nagiging constraint na lang doon yung budget, no? Kasi kung kunyari 10 projects yan, tapos yung budget naman kasi hindi sufficient para sa lahat, then the company has to select either based on the total net present value, kung sino pinakamataas na net present value, pwede yung pinaka nasa number 1 choice, no? Okay. Now take a look at this. This is also the Npv profile. And these are 2 projects, Project G and Project F. Yung Project G yung pula, yung Project F yung light blue. Now, when will this happen? Bakit nagkakaganto yung net Npv profile? No? Okay, this will happen if there's a difference between the decision for Npv and the decision for IRR. Okay, kunyari, si Project G, kunyari sinasabi natin na based on Npv, mas maganda si Project G. Pero based on IRR, mas maganda si Project F. So pag may conflict, when you plot the net present value profile, you will have this kind of a situation. Pag may conflict, guys, it requires that you determine anong weighted average cost of capital ang mas maganda si Project G, tapos up to what range mas maganda si Project F. Okay, let's take a look at this. Ano tong discount rate na to? What is that discount rate? Okay, sinabi ba dito sa example na to? Okay. 13.9 ba? 13.9% daw to. Okay. So let's take a look at this. 13.9. So what does this and net present value profile tell us? It tells us, guys, this point here is called your crossover rate. Ano yung crossover rate? Why is it called crossover rate? It's called the crossover rate because it is at that intersection when there will be a change in the decision, kung project F or project G. Dito sa crossover rate, guys, we are indifferent. So this is the point of indifference. Okay, anong ibig sabihin ng point of indifference? It doesn't matter whether you choose project G or project F. Bakit? At this point, they have the same net present value. Diba? Pareho lang yung net present value at 13.8%. Okay, however, guys, below 13.8%, if the weighted average cost of capital is below 13.8%, then the choice of the project should be project G. G dapat ang pipiliin. Bakit? Kasi if you take a look at this one, below 13.8%, which is this area, project G, the NPV of project G is higher than NPV of project F. No? Mas mataas yung red curve kaysa sa blue curve na to. Okay, so less than 13.8%, choose project G. However, okay, more than 13.8% hanggang 36.3%, guys, it should be project F. Kasi all the time here, the NPV of project F is greater than project G. In fact, guys, pagdating ng 25%, okay, which is ito yung IRR ni project G. Ito naman yung IRR ni project F, no? Okay? Bakit ko nasabi na IRR to? Kasi it's the IRR of project G where the net present value is 0. Diba? Zero yung NPV dito for project G. Ito naman 0 yung net present value dito for project F. So at these points, these are what we call the IRRs. IRR ni F, IRR ni G. Okay? So again, let me summarize. Below 13.8%, yung WACC must choose project G. From 13.8% up hanggang 36.3%, choose project F. Okay? Beyond 36.3%, reject both. Okay? Bakit i-reject both? Kasi 0 na yung net present value nila pareho. In fact, dito si project G, greater than 25%, 0 na siya. No? Negative na yung net present value nila. Okay? So that's how you decide, guys. Magkakaroon lang tayo ng ganito kung may conflict sa NPV at saka sa IRR. Otherwise, guys, kung walang conflict, parang hindi magmi-meet yung NPV profiles ng dalawang ng dalawang projects na yan. Okay? All right. So let's move ahead. Okay. Okay. So again, paano yung choice, guys, pag limited yung resources? Okay, so you rank the projects. You can either use the net present value or the profitability index. Okay, take a look at this, guys. Tingnan nyo to. Si project A, ang NPV niya 21. Si project B, ang NPV niya 16. Si project C, ang NPV niya 12. Okay, so if we just base it on NPV, okay, ang si project A ang mas maganda. Kaso, take a look at this, guys. Ang investment ni A is 10 million. Samantaling si B, 5 million lang. So, if we just look at this and disregard this, mas maganda si A. No? Pero guys, kung titingnan natin pareho, NPV at saka investment, we have what we call the profitability index by dividing the net present value, okay, by the investment. Okay, so we can divide that. Okay, we can divide that. So we see that the profitability index of B is higher. Okay. All right. So okay, you can read on this, guys. Kunyari 10 ano lang yung budget, 10 million. Okay, so pag pinili natin si A, exclude natin si B at saka si C. Okay, di ba? How about but can we choose now B and C? Kasi di ba additive to eh. Sabi natin kanina yung NPVs are additive. So, pag tinignan din natin, guys, si B at saka si C kasi parehong 10 million yan, then 16 plus 12, this will be 28. So mas maganda yung ano, mas maganda yung ano yung 28 million kaysa kay 21 million. Okay, so that's also basing it on the profitability index, yung 3.2, mas mataas kaysa kay 2.1, pati itong 2.4. So based on profitability index, we can choose B and C if our budget is 10 million kasi pasok naman sila kung 10 million itong dalawang to. Okay, so another important thing, guys, no? Okay, it's also important to compute for the profitability index. All right. Okay, so I think that's about it for chapter 5. Okay, so summary lang to. Okay, and next is chapter 6. So in chapter 6, we're just going to look at some. Okay, I suggest, guys, you also solve the problems. Okay. By the way, before I forget, guys, I'm happy that almost all of you took the exams in yung last Saturday. Now we have one last exam. Okay, I'm thinking of kasi wala na tayong time din para i-group quiz ko pa kayo. So it will be again at 2 o'clock. Hope you're okay at that time, guys. 2 o'clock ng Saturday, and that will cover chapters 5 and 6 and chapter 9. Bali yung capital budgeting at saka yung cost of capital. And multiple choice na lang din yung questions natin. Okay? Also, Saturday, guys, ng 2 o'clock din. 2 to 3:30. All right. So, this chapter, guys, chapter 6, discusses how we compute for the cash flows. Kasi di ba sabi natin, hindi pwedeng ang gamitin yung net income, no? So how is the cash flows generated? Okay. So may mga rules lang dito, guys. Some of the rules are din natin titingnan, no? Unang-una, discount cash flows ang ginagamit. The discounted cash flows, not the net income. Pangalawa, discount incremental cash flows. So anong ibig sabihin nito, guys? Anong ibig sabihin ng incremental cash flows? Okay, kunyari, we're going into machine replacement. So may existing machine na tayo. Si machine na yan, pag gagamitin pa natin yan, yung revenues natin, yung sales natin for next year will be 100. But if we replace it with machine 2, okay, yung bagong machine, ang expected ng profit natin, our sales natin will be 180. So kung new machine, 180. Kung old machine, 100. Okay, so paano natin i-analyze yun? Ang i-analyze lang natin, guys, yung incremental. 180 minus 100, that will be 80. Yun lang ang i-discuss natin. Yung mga incremental, yung difference between the new machine and the old machine. Okay, so that's what we mean by incremental cash flows. Okay, so if you're choosing between going ahead with the current scenario, current machinery, or replacing it with the new machinery, so what we're going to do is to analyze the increment. Okay, ano yung difference ng bago at saka luma? Yun ang ika-capital budgeting natin. Okay, and then of course may inflation din. At saka kailangan i-separate yung investment at saka financing decisions. I'll explain this in a while. Tapos dapat isasama yung taxes. Okay? So let me give an example here. Okay, may example tayo dito. Okay, so next slide. Next page. All right. So let's take a look at this one. Okay, don't worry about yung mga tax, no, kasi iba naman yung case ng tax sa US kaysa sa atin dito. So we're not looking at the taxes. All right. Ito, guys. So ito importante ito. Ano yung 3 elements of the cash flows? Number 1, cash flows from the capital investment. Ito yung i-invest natin na lupa, capex to, no? Na machinery, okay, na building. Ito yung long-term na capital investment. Tapos i-consider din natin, guys, yung mga OPEX ito. Yung operating cash flow at saka yung cash flow from changes in operating capital. Okay, so let's illustrate that. May example tayo dito. You can look at this example. Okay, so first part is yung capital investment. Yan. So at year 0, mag-i-invest ng 12,000. Okay, so isasama pa natin mga relevant costs dito, no? Okay, kunyari may old equipment tayo, kung may old equipment tayo, ibebenta natin yun. No? So dapat, itatagdag natin dito yun kasi incremental ang tinitingnan natin. No? Mag-i-invest tayo ng 12,000 kaso makakakuha tayo kunyari ng 1,000. So dapat may plus 1,000 dito. Saan manggagaling 1,000? Yung lumang equipment, ibebenta natin. Makakakuha tayo ng 1,000 doon. So, i-compare natin yung bago, ang cost ng 12,000. Pero yung luma, mabebenta natin, makakuha tayong proceeds doon. Therefore, ang net investment na lang will be negative 11,000. Kasi negative 12,000 yung bago, tapos may proceeds tayo from the sale of the old assets na 1,000. Of course, may tax pa yan, ano? May tax. So that's how you compute for the capital investment. Okay, ito na guys, yung operating cash flow. Yung operating cash flow, gagawin natin dyan, ifo-forecast natin yung sales. Okay, sales. So ito guys, kung ano to, kung if this is a new equipment, no? Wala tayong i-compare kasi bagong equipment yun eh. Pero kung replacement to, okay, kailangan yung increment ang kukunin natin. What do I mean by replacement? May lumang equipment tayo. Okay, ginagamit natin yon. So, kunyari may sales tayo, using the old equipment, may sales tayo, may revenues tayo na, kunyari, 100, no? Pero yung new equipment, mas mabilis siya, mas maraming na-produce, ang estimated sales natin, 623. Okay? So, dapat, ang gagamitin natin sa capital budgeting natin is the 623 yung new equipment minus the 100 of the old equipment, which is 523. So, kaya 523 na lang pinapasok natin dito. So that is where this is coming from. I was assuming na incremental to, no? But this could have been also, this could have been hindi incremental. Ibig sabihin mga bagong equipment, so bagong sales. Okay? So everything, magko-construct ng income statement. So andyan yung revenues, andyan yung cost of goods sold, andyan yung other costs, andyan yung depreciation because of the new equipment. Okay? Depreciation, tapos may income before tax, less tax, and then may net income after tax. Okay. However, guys, hindi ginagamit yung net income after tax. Okay. What is being used is the cash flow. Okay, cash flow. Kaya i-convert natin itong net income after tax into cash flow. And that's the way to go. No? So how did we convert this? In-add back lang yung depreciation. So for example, sa year 1, okay, sa year 0 wala pang depreciation yan kasi kabibili lang ng equipment eh. So sa year 1 kunyari ang depreciation is 2,000. So the net profit after tax less the depreciation, so converts it back into cash flows. So ang gagamitin ngayon sa analysis guys ito. Ito na yung tinitingnan natin mga cash flows, and then we determine, hindi pa pala, sorry, meron pa tayo dito. So titingnan din natin yung mga working capital. Okay, changes in the working capital. Okay, so you have the initial investment, you have the operating cash flows, and then you have the change in the working capital. So that will give you now the total project cash flow. So i-add natin yung coming from those three values above, no? Tapos i-discount na natin and get the net present value. So that in a nutshell guys is how capital budgeting is done. So kailangan titingnan natin yung tatlong aspects, yung initial investment, operating cash flows, and then the changes in working capital. Okay? So again, and net present value yung ginagamit guys in order to decide whether which of the project is feasible or not. Okay. Now, mamaya titingnan din natin itong itong magkaiba yung life ng asset. Si machine A 3 years, si machine B 2 years. Paano sino-solve yan? I'm going to show you how that is solved, no? Hahanapin natin si equivalent annual cost or yung annualized net present value. Okay? So, ito guys yung kanina when to replace an old machine, ito yung tinatawag natin na merong tawag dito, I forgot the name. Incremental cost. No? Okay, so lastly, okay, wala na, yun na, yung summary na yan. So take a look at the summary and then try to solve exercises here. All right, so that takes care of chapter 5, capital budgeting. So we now go to Excel. Pakibukas na yung Excel natin, class. Ay, wait. Sorry. Nako, nagkamali yata ako. Paki-check nga guys yung yung file na binigay ko sa inyo kung may answer. Hindi ko yata na-save yung ito yung sa kabilang section. Let me just save this. This is K37. Okay, kindly open guys yung file that I sent you, February 7, 2022. Okay, can you kindly see guys if what I sent you, what I shared with you has answers? If so, sorry about that. Dapat walang mga answers yan kasi gagawin sana natin. Paki-chat nga guys please kung may mga answers. Dapat blanco guys. Dapat walang mga answers yung May mga answers ba? Okay, good. Okay, akala ko yung yun na-send ko sa inyo yung yung ginawa namin sa kabilang section. Okay, so this will be, we have 4 worksheets to work on today. Now, from my experience in the other 2 sections, natatapos kami dito sa last, kaso kinakapos ako ng oras. So as I said guys, mamaya please, I hope I have your permission to continue. You may leave the room guys. Kung kunyari 7:30 na tapos, hindi pa ako tapos. Sasabihin ko naman guys kung matatapos na. But if you need to go, no problem. I'll just continue recording. I'll just continue explaining so that we're able to finish this. Okay. So let's start with the first one. Now, this will not be difficult for us kasi na-compute natin guys na na natin, di ba? We have already computed, we know how to compute for net present value and we know how to compute for the for IRR, etc. Okay, so maglalagay lang ako dito guys ng kakopy ko lang to initial investment. So this is the initial investment for, okay, naka-percentage number. Okay, initial. Okay, so our initial investment for project Y is 1 to 1.2 million. For project Z, it's 1.8 million. So let's give this a name, no? In investment Y, okay, investment Z. Okay, investment Y, investment Z. Okay. So we'd like to determine which project is better. Assuming wala naman tayong wala tayong constraint sa budget, so okay lang na 1.2 yung project Y and project Z is 1.8. So it depends on what type of these projects are. If they're independent, then that means that we can choose both for as long as this falls within the budget. Now, if they're mutually exclusive, pipili tayo ng isa dyan. Okay? Now, take note, they have different initial investments. So this will matter when we compare these two investments. Okay, So let's give this also a name. Lagyan natin ng name to. So this is the so ito yung mga cash. Lagyan natin ng pangalan, baka magamit natin later on. Cash flows for Y. Okay, I gave it a name, cash flows for Y. Okay, ito naman, I'll give this a name, cash flows for Z. Okay. All right. So how do we determine which project is feasible? Well, of course, we cannot add them. No, that's the wrong way to go about finding the solution. We have to convert them into their present values. So let's convert this into a present value, negative PV. You recall guys yung formula natin, negative PV. By the way guys, bigyan din natin itong pangalan yung rate natin. Let's call it WACC. Okay, I named it WACC. Okay, so this is equal to negative PV. Okay, and then the rate is your WACC. So let me just type WACC. Okay, Npr. So this is 0, right? Comma. A PMT, this is not an annuity. Rather, this is a single cash flow. Itong 1 to na to. Okay, the type, ignore. Okay, nothing to copy here, nothing to fix here. Okay, so we know that it's still 1,200. Okay, gawin pala natin dito. I-fix natin tong B25. I-fix natin yung row para pwede natin makopy itong formula na to dito kay Z. Kasi dapat yung time natin dito lang, no? Naka-fix lang kay row 25. Okay. All right, then we copy to the right. Okay. So if you just want to see the formula for so ito yung formula natin for for the first element here. And therefore, since ano na to guys, present values na siya, we can now sum this up. Sum ito mga present values. Okay? All right. Sorry. Hindi sinama tong ano. Dapat kasama si B. Okay? So, itong mga to present values na yan, pag in-add natin siya, 159,856, which we call the net present value. So it's called the net present value, di ba? Talagyan din natin ng pangalan to. We call it present value PV cash flows for Y. PV cash flows ni Y. Ito, cash flows lang to, no? Hindi cash flows Y lang. Ito yung mga present values na. Baka magamit natin later. Okay, NPV, guys, ito. Sinum up lang natin yan. Alright. Okay, so now, how did we get the net present value? Di ba kinuha natin yung mga present values nila, then in-add natin. But we know there's a shortcut for that, di ba, yung NPV function. So the NPV function, sabi natin ano yung rate, sundin natin siya, WACC, comma, ano yung mga values. Okay, so yung mga values nito, di ba? Itong mga to. So these are the cash flows. So cash flows ni Y yun. Nagamit natin, no? Cash flows ni Y. And then, but we have to add the, diba? Yung initial investment ni ano. Asan yan? Did we give this a name? Wala pa pala, no? We haven't given this a name. Bigyan din natin ng pangalan to, no? Okay, so highlight natin. Naalala nyo kung paano magbigay ng pangalan. I'll give it a name on the left side. Okay. Not this. So, diba? Control Shift F3. Create names from selection. Yung nasa left column. Okay, nasa left column. Okay. Alright, so ito may pangalan na investment ni Y, tapos ito investment ni Z. Okay, therefore, yung net present value natin, di ba, sabi natin, the net present value, rate natin yung WACC, tama? Then yung mga values natin, yung initial cash flows natin. So that's the cash flows for Y. And then we have to add yung initial investment natin kay investment ni Y. Okay, there. Okay, para mas intuitive siya, no? So that's the Npv formula, yung WACC natin, tapos yung cash flows ni Y, hindi kasama yung yung year zero dun sa Npv function, and then i-add natin yung initial investment ni Y. Okay? So pareho lang, no? So based on Npv, okay yung natin, okay yung project natin. Kasi positive yung Npv natin. Okay, so we now go, ito yung formula natin. Okay, we can copy this. We can copy this formula, Control-C, Control-V. Okay, tama. Negative PV, yung WACC natin, and then time natin itong B25. And then yung FV, it is 1/8. Okay, we can copy this to the right. Okay, and then we can, let's give this also a name. Lagyan natin ng pangalan to, no? Let's call this PV, pareho lang kanina, cash, para uniform. PV, cash flows ni Z. So ito yung mga present value. Ito naman yung cash flows ni Z. Ito present value ng cash flows. Okay, so we can add this. Sabi natin, sum natin yung, actually yung sum natin yung initial investment ni Z, di ba? Tsaka yung present value cash flows ni Z. Okay? Para lang yung concept nando doon. So we're adding all the present values. Okay, kasi itong investment natin kay Z, present value na yan eh. Or we just add everything here. Pareho lang yan. Okay, so it's 2,446.38. Therefore, guys, ang conclusion natin, mas maganda si Project Z kasi mas mataas yung net present value niya. Okay, so another formula is get the Npv. Npv, ano yung Npv natin? Ang rate natin yung WACC. Tama? Ano yung mga values natin? We're just adding the present value cash flows. No? Oops, mali. Present value cash flows ni Z. Okay? Close natin yun plus yung investment kay ni Z. There. Ito yung investment ni Z, yung 1.8 million. So let me put the formula. Oops, mali. Bakit nagkaganon? Present value, sum nito, Npv plus investment ni Z is tama. Net present value, WACC. Values, this one. Ay, mali. Npv pala hinahanap natin, ano? So this should be cash flows. Cash flows. Sorry, my mistake. Okay, dapat ito. Alright. Any questions, guys? Any questions? Okay, clear so far? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good. Good. How about the rest? Don't be ashamed to ask, guys. Okay, good. All right. So based on Npv, guys, we choose Project Z by virtue of having the higher net present value. Pero guys, titingnan natin, no? Di ba parang unfair, no? Kasi mas mataas yung initial investment ni ni Y eh. So most likely, guys, mas mataas yung niyan, yung net present value. So is there a way to compare the two? Kasi parang hindi apples and apples ang kino-compare natin. Yes, there's a way to do that. Okay, we use the Profitability Index. Okay, so si Profitability Index, ano yung formula niya? So this is the formula for Profitability Index. So it's the cash flow at time t over 1 plus k to the t. This is the present value, di ba? Formula ng present value to. From t is equal to 1 up to n. Which means, guys, ang tinitin na lang natin yung sum ng present value ng cash flows. And then i-divide natin siya ng initial investment. Okay? So magkano makukuha ni Project Y? So this is simply the sum of the present value of cash flows ni Y. Diba? Okay. Yung mga present value, kasi summation ng discounted, discounted figures, no? Discounted na cash flows. So we're interested in the present values of the cash, ano. Okay, so it's this one. Ay, sorry, dapat dito pala to. Lipat ko siya dito. Is equal to, so the sum PV cash flow ni Z, ni Y. Okay? In other words, ito guys, pag in-add natin to, yung mga present value na to, okay, ito makukuha natin. Now, Profitability Index is also a measure that makes use of the time value of money. Okay, how do I know that? Ang ina-add natin guys, yung mga present values, hindi yung original values. Okay, so we add this and then divided by magkano man yung investment. No? So this is your Y. Okay, tapos yung Y natin is 1,200. So if we divide this, okay, so we have 1.133. In other words, guys, for every 1 peso of investment, a Project Y will generate 1.133 positive cash flows. On the other hand, si Z naman, sum din natin yung present value ng cash flows ni Z. Sum of the present values of the cash flows of Z. Okay? And then, okay, nga, mas mataas yung present value niya, kaso mas mataas din naman yung initial investment niya. So para patas yung yung comparison, iaano natin, sa standardize natin. No? We're going to divide it all by per 1 peso of initial investment. So it turns out that Z is still better. No? Kasi yung profitability index niya 1.136, higher than 1.133. So ibig sabihin mas mataas yung present value ng cash flows ang nakukuha natin for Project Z for every 1 peso of investment. Okay? All right. So Profitability Index, Project Z. Project Z is better relative to Project Y due to higher Profitability Index. All right. Any questions, guys, about the Profitability Index? Okay. So, maganda yung Profitability Index, guys, especially kung mag-iiba yung initial investment. No? Kasi doon natin makikita talaga yung standardized sa comparison. Kasi pag NPV lang, masasabi natin, syempre, parang may undue advantage si Project C kasi mas mataas yung initial investment niya. Okay. All right. Third measure, guys, IRR. We already have computed this before. Okay. So let's just rehash this. Sabi natin, when is a project feasible based on IRR? If the IRR is greater than the WACC. Okay yung project. So computin nga natin yung IRR ni Y at saka ni Z. So this is equal to IRR, internal rate of return. So ano yung mga kailangan? Values, no? Values. Values nino, guys? Values nino. So lahat ng original values natin, so that's the initial investment, yung initial investment ni Y, okay, plus the cash flows ni Y. Okay, yun na yung kailangan natin, no? IRR ng lahat ng yan, no? Okay, and then, oops, mali, no? So hindi yata pwede yan. Okay, so dapat isang ano lang, my apologies. We cannot do that. Dapat isang stream lang ng cash flows. So our values is, we have to highlight all of this. So dapat meron tayong siguro total na ano, total na pangalan. Okay? IRR nila. Okay, percent natin to. Format siya percent. 1, 2. Okay, so Project Y has an IRR equal to 18.23%. Okay, how about Project Z? Si Project Z naman, ang IRR niya, okay, so we need to get the cash flows of Project Z. Ito, kasama yung initial investments. Lahat ng cash flows. Okay, Control Enter. Alright, copy natin yung format nito. Okay, so you can see here, guys, that based on internal rate of return, Project Y is better than Project Z. Okay? Project Y is better than Project Z. Therefore, ano yung conclusion natin dito? Based on IRR, which is better, both are acceptable. In the first place, Project Y and Project Z are acceptable because they are both higher than the weighted average cost of capital of 12.6. So okay si Project Y, okay si Project Z. Kung independent sila, okay parehong piliin. But if they're mutually exclusive, what we're going to choose is Project Y, di ba? Project Y. Project Y is better based on IRR because the IRR of Y is greater than IRR Z. Okay, however, sabi natin, nagko-conflict siya sa NPV kasi sa NPV, sabi natin si Project Z ang pipiliin. Okay, pag may ganyang conflict, guys, always choose NPV. Okay, so kahit na mas malaki yung IRR ni Y, kaysa kay Z, but if the NPV of Z is higher than Y, then we choose Project Z. Okay. Now there's another way to compute for IRR, and it's called MIRR. Yung MIRR kaya kino-compute yan kasi this is consistent with the NPV. Okay. So let's now compute for the. By the way, guys. By the way. How much is the NPV, okay, NPV of Y at the IRR? So we can show this, NPV, rate natin, ito gagamitin natin, okay? Tapos ang values natin, di ba yung cash flows ni Y, hindi kasama yung plus the initial investment, no? Okay. So NPV natin, using this IRR, and then yung cash flows ni Y plus the initial investment. Okay? So the NPV is 0. Diba? Kasi that proves, guys, na if at the IRR, okay, the IRR is that rate of return where the net present value is equal to 0. Okay, ganun din dito, guys. No? Same here. Kay Z. Let's see what will be the net present value of Z if IRR is equal to 17.39. Ganun din, NPV. Okay, so rate is still WACC. And then ang values natin, yung cash flows ni Z. And then we have to add the initial investment ni Z. Yeah. Okay. Enter. Alright, may mali yata ako dito. Sorry, hindi WACC. No? Ito dapat. Ang rate of return natin will be the IRR. We'd like to see what will be the net present value of Z if the discount rate is equal to IRR. Okay, so 0 din, no? Okay, so na-prove natin dito, guys, na the IRR is the rate of return where your net present value is equal to 0. Okay, pause muna ako, guys. Any questions with regard to IRR? Clear ba? Nakahabol kayo, guys? Nakuha nyo to? Okay, good. Thank you so much. Okay, yung iba. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Robert. Okay, so let's move on, guys. Ito naman MIRR, guys. No? Modified Internal Rate of Return. So in order to compute for the MIRR, we use the MIRR function of Excel. So this is equal to modified MIRR. Alright. So kailangan natin yung values. So ano yung values natin? Okay, di ba sabi natin lahat ng mga cash flows natin, including the initial. Okay. And then the finance rate, guys, will be your WACC. And then your investment rate is your WACC. Okay, pareho lang. Yun ang MIRR. Ang kaibahan nito, guys, sa IRR, ang finance rate is the WACC, the reinvestment rate is the IRR. Yun ang difference. No? So, medyo strict yung constraint dun sa IRR. Okay, so what will this be? So this is, gawin natin 15.45. No? 15.45 yung MIRR ni Project Y. Okay, kunin nga natin yung NPV dito. NPV, rate natin to. Okay, and then values natin, our values will be NPV to, no? So kailangan natin yung cash flows ni Y. Okay, and then of course, idadagdag natin si investment ni Y. Yan. Okay, so what's the NPV? 74,705. Okay, how about for Z? What's the MIRR? Values, guys. Okay, so kay Z, lahat to. Okay, and then comma, finance rate is still your WACC. Then investment rate, WACC pa rin. Okay, so this is your MIRR for Project Z. And this gives us a value equal to 15.51. Tama ba ako? MIRR. Ang values natin, ano yung values ko dito? Okay, tama. B32 to G32. Okay. Finance rate, reinvestment rate is the bank. 32 ba yan? Okay, tama. Project Z. So we have now an MIRR equal to, okay, tama pala. Okay, now if you compare the MIRR ni Project Z, mas mataas siya kay Project Y. Okay, so sabi natin si MIRR, consistent yan with NPV. It's consistent with the net present value. So we expect that the modified internal rate of return of Project Z is higher than that of Y. In fact, if we compute for the net present value, and NPV natin using this rate, and then values will be cash flows of Project Z, okay, and then plus natin si initial investment kay Z. Okay, so the NPV is 90.490. So mas mataas, guys, yung net present value ni Z kaysa kay Y at the MIRR. Okay, so sabi natin, guys, that's why mas pag nagko-conflict si IRR at saka si NPV, you can compute for the modified internal rate of return. And it will show you that the MIRR of the one with the higher NPV will always be greater. Okay, so in this case, Project Z is chosen. Okay, and this agrees with the net present value method. Okay, any questions, guys? Bilis ng oras. Nasa una pa lang tayo. Okay, so let's go here quickly, yung payback period at saka yung discounted payback period. So simple lang, guys, yung payback period. Ang kaibahan ng payback at saka yung discounted, sabi natin kanina, payback period uses your original cash flows. So you add this in order to recover yung 1.2 million. So may mali yun, no? In this case, kasi ang ina-add natin belong to different time frames. So let's do that. How do we compute for the cumulative sum? Okay? So this, and then press colon. Yan. Pag press natin colon, uulitin natin yung B93 to B93. Tapos sa first one, gawin natin, i-fix natin yung column B. No? Kasi kakopy natin to the right. No? F4. Yan. I'm fixing column B. $B93. Okay. Enter. And then copy. So what's happening now? So 1, 2 plus 420, that's negative 780. Ibig sabihin nun, may kulang pa tayong 780. Then we add again 480, negative 300. Hindi pa natin nare-recover. Kulang pa na tayo ng 300. And then sa third year, guys, since makakakuha tayo ng 320, marirecover na natin itong kulang pa na 300. Okay, so in order to compute for the payback period, we determine saan ba naging positive na yung cash flow natin. Okay, di ba dito? Okay, so that's equal to 2 years plus i-ratio natin, guys, no? Ilan pa yung kailangan natin na cash flow? 300. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the negative sign there, negative 300 para maging positive, divided by magkano yung cash flow na makukuha natin sa year 3, 320. Okay, in other words, guys, pre-norate lang natin. 300 yung kulang pa, divide by 320 makukuha natin. This assumes, class, that your cash flow is generated uniformly throughout the year. Okay, enter. So that's 2.94. So more than 2 years, no? Between the second year and the third year. Bale, on the third year, okay, hindi pa natatapos yung third year, makukompleto na natin makuha, ma-recover yung initial investment. So ganun din, guys, kay ganun din kay Z, no? Sum ng, okay, colon, para ma-fix natin itong B97. And then fix the column $B97. Okay, and then copy to the right. Okay, so here you'll have the cumulative sum. No? Binabawas ang binabawas to. And what's the payback period? The payback period is between the third year and the fourth year. So this is equal to 3 years plus negative ng 410. Ito na yung kulang natin divided by 710. Kailangan may negative yun, guys, kasi pag hindi natin linagyan ng negative, magiging negative yung answer dito, mama-minus 3. So magiging 2 plus years na lang. So mali yun. So it's 3.58. Okay, so we say that we were able to recover investment Y faster than investment Z. Okay, kasi mas malaki si investment Z. It has a bigger initial cash flow, okay, compared to investment Y, which has 1.2 million. Okay. Lastly, guys, itong discounted payback. So si discounted payback, ang ginagamit natin dyan, guys, is not the original cash flow, but the discounted values. So since may discounted values na tayo sa taas, diba kinuha na natin to, no? Ito, yung discounted, yung present values. I-link na lang natin doon. Link natin siya. There. Kinapi ko lang siya. By the way, may questions ba dito sa ano? Equal to let me just flash the formula. Okay. So, sabi natin, guys, discounted payback period, ang ginagamit natin yung mga discounted cash flows, hindi yung original cash flow. So let's compute now for the cumulative present value of the cash flows. Sum, ang gagamitin natin itong mga present values, no? Sum of that colon, i-fix natin sa first element here, fix the column, okay? And then copy this to the right. Okay, of course, it will be longer, guys, kasi ang ginagamit natin yung mga discounted values. So for project Y, it will be equal to 4 years, di ba? Tapos ito yung transition niya plus negative. Ito yung gagamitin natin, negative 50 divided by 209. Yung mga present values natin. No? Control Enter. Okay, saan ako nagkamali dito? Plus F105. Ay, sorry. Dapat 104. Okay, ito dapat 4 plus yung ano nito ratio. So that's 4.2 years. Okay, so it will take us 4.2 years to recover the initial investment using discounted payback. So si Z naman din, ganun din, copy natin yung mga present values niya above here. Copy natin and then copy to the right. So these are your present values. Present values yan. So the cumulative present value is the sum of this first element, colon. Okay, fix natin to. F4, 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 column B, para hindi siya aalis sa column B. Okay, control enter, and then copy to the right. Okay, so it's also plus 4 years. No? Okay, so it will be equal to 4 plus negative this one divided by 497. Okay, so it's around 4.5 years, while si project Y is 4.2 years. Okay, so any questions, guys, with this one? Any questions? Okay, so no questions. All right. So that ends our discussion on Npv, Irr, MIRR, Payback, Profitability Index, Discounted Payback. No? Okay, let's now go to Unequal Lines. Ito yung kanina, no? What if your project have unequal lines? Yung isa, kunyari dito, 6 years, dito 4 years, dito 5 years, dito 8 years. Of course, baka may bias na dito for project D kasi marami yung cash flows niya, no? So let's first compute for the Npv. Is equal to Npv. Ang rate natin 12%. No need to fix it kasi may mga 12% bawat isa. Comma. Okay, values. Okay, remember guys, yung ano lang yung future value lang. I can include year 7 and year 8 para makopy ko to the right. Anyway, 0 naman laman ito, so no problem. Okay. And then plus the initial investment. Okay, take note of your Npv formula. Hindi natin sinasama yung cash flow at year 0. Control enter and then copy to the right. So this is just the Npv formula. Npv formula. Okay, so based on the Npv, syempre, makikita natin si Project D ang pinakamalaki. So we say that based on Npv, Project D is the best project. Kaso nga, sabi natin, hindi pa pwede yun kasi si Project D has 8 years, si Project Project A, 6 years, etc. Magkakaiba sila. Okay, so paano natin kukompute yan? What we can do is to compute for the annualized net present value. So pag na-annualize na natin yan, then comparable na sila. No? How do we compute for the annualized net present value? We have to compute for the present value interest factor of an annuity of 1. Okay, what do I mean by this? Okay, kunyari for A, no? Ilang years yung project? 6 years. So anong ibig sabihin nun? Iko-compute ko yung annuity of 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we have 6 years here. So what I'm going to do is, how much is the present value of an annuity of 1? So which means that 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. 6 na 1. Okay, annuity of 1. Okay, how much is the present value there? Kung ano yung present value yun guys, ang tawag dyan, present value interest factor of an annuity of 1. Okay, so that's very easy to compute. Gamitin natin si PV, di ba? Negative PV, ang rate natin is 12%, comma. Ang NPR natin, 6 years, no? 6 years, comma. Ang PMT natin, 1. Okay? 1. Annuity to di ba? Annuity 1. Future value, wala. Annuity lang yan ng panay 1. Type, ignore kasi annuity ordinary yan. Control enter. So it's 4. Okay, 4.11. So this is the present value interest factor of an annuity of 1. Okay, so ano yung natin yung formula dito? Let's write this. Equal to negative PV. Kailangan general yung formula. Rate natin is 12%. We can use this one. 12%. Kakopy naman natin to the right yan. Comma. Ano yung NPR natin? Okay, ang problema natin dito, iba-iba yung ano, no? Iba-iba yung NPR natin dito. So hindi natin pwede i-type dito ng 6. O hindi natin pwede i-highlight to. Kasi paano natin makakopy dito yan kay B na may 4 lang. O kay C na may 5. Kay D na may 8. So what we can do is to use the count A function of Excel. Si count A kasi, si count A counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. Okay, so count A natin, ito, no? Siyempre, wag natin isasama si year 0. Okay, bibilangin ni Excel to, ilan to? 6. Pag kinapin natin to the right, bibilangin niya rin yung may laman lang. So 5, 6, and then 8. So, you can use the count A function. Okay, so those, okay, sana tayo? Okay, sasarado ko na itong count A, no? Comma. So we're now in PMT. Ano yung PMT natin? 1, diba? Annuity of 1. And then, walang future value, ignore the type, close natin to. So that will now be the present value interest factor of an annuity of 1 for 6 years. Pareho, no? Yan. And then we copy it to the right. Alright. So ito na yung mga present value interest factor na nila, no? Of an annuity of 1. Ibig sabihin, tagwa 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 lang. Okay? Alright, so we can now compute for the annualized net present value, and this is equal to the NPV divided by the present value interest factor. Alright, so you can now see that the annualized net present value, the highest is B. Ito. Okay, so among these projects, Project B is the better one. Project B is the better one kasi siya yung may annualized net present value, no, na mas malaki, 31,448.50. Okay? All right. Okay, so that, any questions about this, guys? Yung unequal lives, yung magkakaiba yung lives nila. Okay, is this clear? Paki-chat naman please kung clear. Okay, thank you. Good. Salamat. All right. Second to the last, guys, multiple IRRs. Okay. So sabi natin, guys, pwedeng magkaroon ng multiple IRRs kung may cash flow at the beginning and then may cash flow pa na negative afterwards. Negative cash flow at the beginning, which is of course given yan kasi mag-i-invest tayo eh. And then, anywhere here, sa dulo or sa gitna, meron pang negative. So this is a candidate, guys, for a situation where you have a multiple IRRs. Okay, so let's find the IRR. No? Is equal to IRR. Values natin, lahat, highlight, values. Okay. Ignore the guess. So the first IRR is 3.91. Okay, ang tanong ngayon, ano yung pangalawang IRR natin? Okay, so how do we find it? IRR, again, values ulit. Okay, dito papasok yung guess, guys. So sa guess, guys, you have to put a value greater than 3.91%. Kunyari, 5%. So let me put first 5%, control enter. Okay, hindi pa rin, no? Ibig sabihin, mali yung guess natin. Let's make it 10%. Okay, hindi pa rin. Kasi pareho rin yung values. I'll make it 15%, yung guess natin. Ayun, okay? So lumabas na, guys. So sabi dito, 30.28% yung ano, guys, yung the other IRR. So let's do this, guys. Maggawa tayo dito ng ano. Let's set up increments of 0%, no? 0% yung WACC natin. Okay, lagyan natin ng 2 decimal place. Okay. And then i-fill natin to, fill, series, columns. Mag-increments tayo ng 2%, 2%. Okay. Hanggang, lagyan natin hanggang 40%. No? step value 40%. There. Okay? So fill series in columns, step value 2%. So magdadagdag siya ng 2% increments hanggang 40%. Okay. So we now have a series up to 40%. And then what we're going to do is we're going to insert yung dalawang IRR natin. So 3.91 is between this one. Let me insert a column there. So this is equal to 3.91%. Okay. Wala lang ano. So this is IRR1, ano? IRR1. IRR1. Okay. And then the other one, 30.28, dito natin ilagay. Ito, 30.28. So this is equal to 30.28. There. So this is your IRR2. Okay. So ang gagawin natin guys, ipa-plot natin yung NPV profile natin. So let's compute for the NPV. No? NPV. Okay, actually pwedeng ganito, no? We can put this one above. Okay, so NPV natin, and then magko-compute, di ba na? Never mind. Okay, computein natin NPV dito. NPV is equal to, ano yung rate natin? So kukuha natin yung rate isa-isa, no? And then the values natin is your cash flow. Okay, sorry, NPV dapat yung year 1 lang. Dapat naka-fix guys, no? Naka-fix yung, since ikakopy ko pababa, dapat naka-fix yung ano natin, yung column. No need to fix yung row, no? No need to fix the column kasi hindi naman mag-change yung column position. Okay, and then plus yung initial investment natin. Okay, fix also the row. Okay. Control Enter. Okay, let me put here the formula. Formula text. Okay. NPV, no? All right, so I can now copy this down. There. So we now have our NPVs. Our NPVs given the different cost of capital. No? And if we check guys, in 3.91, NPV niya is 0. Tama, di ba? Kasi at the NPV, at the IRR, the NPV is equal to 0. Ito din, 0 din. Okay, so tama yung mga NPVs natin. So let's now plot this. Plot. So insert. Insert, I'll choose this one, yung smooth na lang. There. At lagyan natin ng change chart type. Lagyan ito. Okay. All right. So this is our NPV profile. Given the different discount rates, different cost of capital. Okay, so you notice guys na dito yung 3.91% at saka dito yung 30.28%. At this point guys, 0 yung NPV. At this point, 0 din yung NPV. Therefore, ang conclusion natin, accept the project for any cost of capital greater than 3.91% and lower than 30.28%. Okay? Kung yung WACC natin between 3.91 up to 30.28, okay yung project. If it's less than 3.91, reject the project. If it's greater than 30.28%, reject the project then. Bakit? Kasi at that levels, guys, at those levels, negative na yung negative na yung net present value. Okay? All right. So any questions about this? Yung multiple IRRs natin? Clear ba, guys? Clear so far? Okay, if you're not able to get it, guys, anyway, ipopost ko yung yung video tonight, no? Para if you want to review what we did, you have access to it. Okay, so lastly guys, itong crossover, no? Halos pareho lang din ng ano yan ng kanina. Mas complicated din to ng konti. Okay, we have 15 minutes. Siguro ito mga kailangan ng 20 minutes. So once again guys, kung if you need to go, okay, tutuloy ko lang hanggang matapos to, no? Okay, so here you have two project S and project L. Okay? So gusto natin malaman kung sino ba dito yung sino dito yung okay, format nga natin, number. Lagyan natin ng ganito. Okay, so ito yung initial investment natin, parehong 1,000 sila, magkaiba yung cash flows. Okay, so let's compute for the NPV. Lagyan natin ng pangalan to. Itong 10%. Let's call this WAC 1. Kasi kanina WAC, di ba? WAC 1. Okay, so for the NPV rate natin is WAC 1. WAC 1. And then the values, guys, remember, dapat yung mga from year 1 lang. Okay? And then plus natin si year 0. That's your NPV. From year 1, and then sa plus natin si year 0. So that's 78.82, and then si project L, 100.4. Okay, so dito guys, we can see that project L is better in terms of NPV. But how about in terms of IRR? IRR, values, kasama lahat. Okay, enter, copy to the right. Okay, now we can see that based on IRR, mas maganda si project S, no? Mas maganda si project S. So may conflict tayo. Okay, so compute lang natin MIRR. Okay? MIRR values natin once again lahat. And then finance rate is WAC 1. Okay, and then the investment rate is WAC 1. There. Okay, 12.1. So alam natin na mas mataas ang MIRR ni project L kasi consistent siya with NPV. Okay, but again, a while ago I said that pag may conflict yung NPV at saka IRR, you will have a plot of the Npv profile na may crossover sila, nagko-cross sila. And that's what will happen here. How do I know? Kasi conflict si NPV at saka si IRR. No? So in that case, magkakaroon tayo ng crossover rate. Okay? Tapos kailangan ma-determine natin kung anong mga range ng WAC ang okay si project S, anong range ng WAC ang okay si project L. Okay, so that's what we want to determine. First of all, we want to find out the crossover point or the point of indifference. Anong weighted average cost of capital it doesn't matter guys kung S or L ang pipiliin natin. So that's the indifference point. Okay? So we will have to compute for that. So let's compute for that. So this is equal to NPV. Okay, ang rate natin ito, no? Fix natin to para makopy natin sa kabila. Okay, ito yung rate natin. Hindi natin alam kung ilan yan, no? Comma, what are our values? NPV, sabi natin, ang kinukuha lang natin year 1 hanggang year whatever, plus the initial investment. Okay? So that's now the NPV for project S. Okay, 300 kasi wala pang ano to, no? So lumalabas dito na 0% siya. Pag i-copy to the right natin to, 475 naman si project L. So at 0%, no, mas maganda si project L. So ang difference nila guys, ang difference nila is equal to project S minus project L. Okay, and ang difference nila ngayon, negative 175, which means that project L is better than project S by 175 pesos. No? Okay, isolve natin guys na dapat yung difference sila 0. Dapat pareho lang yung NPV ni project S and project L. So how do we do that? Yung data natin, data what if analysis, si goal seek natin, no? So what do we set? Set cell, yung difference. To what value? Dapat to 0 yan. Dapat wala silang difference by changing ito. Okay, by changing this one. Therefore, okay natin. All right. So the cost of capital, the indifference point is 11.79975. Yun. So at that rate of return, no, at that WACC, ang NPV ni S is 42.84, the same as L. Okay, so indifferent tayo whether you choose S or L, it doesn't matter. Okay, so dito guys, gagawa na naman tayo ng ng series, no? So let's start with 0%. Finormat ko na to na 3 decimal places. And then ilagay natin hanggang 30% increment of 1. So fill series in columns. Step value is 1%. Okay, step value is 30%. Okay, so meron tayo hanggang dyan, no? 30%. So ilagay natin guys yung ano na lang, yung IRR, ito ilalagay natin to. At saka yung point of indifference. Okay, so let's put the IRR and the indifference point. So si indifference point ilalagay natin dito after 11%. Okay, so this is equal to ito, no? Ilagyan ko lang ng mark para alam natin. So ito yung indifference, no? Indifference point natin. Again, ibig sabihin indifferent tayo kung project S or project L ang pipiliin natin kasi pareho lang naman silang NPV. Okay, then IRR 13.5%, ipasok natin dito after 13%. Let me insert that. So this is equal to 13.5%. Okay, so let me also the decimal places. Okay, so this is the IRR of IRR ni large, no? Okay, so this is the IRR of project L. Tapos yung huli 14.5, ilagay natin siya dito. Okay, so this is equal to yung IRR ni project S. Okay, lagyan ko lang siya ng marker dito. Okay, so ito yung Control C, Control V. So we want guys to create a plot, no? Mag-create tayo ng plot na where we can determine kung ano yung kailan dapat si project S, kailan si project L. So we have to do data table here. So i-link muna natin si project S dun sa NPV ni project S. This one, no? Si project L naman ililink natin sa NPV niya. So ang gagawin natin, sasabihin natin kay Excel, paki-compute yung mga NPVs nila if these are the weighted average cost of capitals. So ang gagawin ni Excel, papalitan niya to, yung WACC na to, no? Papalitan niya ng 0%. So whatever the values here are, ilalagay niya dito. Okay, so this is a very quick way to get values using what we call data table. So how do we do that? Highlight natin itong dalawang to hanggang pababa. Ha-highlight natin hanggang 30% para ang sasabihin natin kay Excel, paki-fill upan nga itong mga NPVs ng different projects given different rates, no? Of course, pwede natin finormula na lang dito, tapos finormula natin dito, tapos copy down. But I'm showing you another way to do it, no? So once you have highlighted that, punta tayo sa data. Data tayo. Okay, naka-highlight, ano? And then data. Data, what if analysis, data table. There. Okay. Row input or column input. Ito yung mga inputs natin, di ba? Itong WACC. Naka-column siya, no? Isang column yan. No? So we're going to put this one, column input saan? So yung column input natin, ilalagay natin dito. Ibig sabihin, yung mga percent dyan, ilalagay ni Excel dito. And then what will happen is that it will capture, kasi ang nakalagay dito NPV, so kukopihin niya kung anong value dito given the percentage. Okay, so that this is a quick way to do it. Okay, there, yan. Okay na? Yan. Okay, so, okay, andyan na, no? Now, I'll leave that as an exercise for you to plot this, pero may binigay na akong answer dito. So sa crossover, paki-unhide nga. Okay? Unhide yung crossover one. May hinide akong workbook, no? Crossover one. Meron nga isang multiple IRRs din. Okay? Crossover one. Okay? Alright. So ito, plinat natin to, no? Si Project S at saka si Project L. Okay? Take note, pinasok natin si this is the indifference point. This is IRR ni L. This is IRR ni Project S. All right. So this is the plot of that. Okay, print natin. Okay. So let's take a look at this, guys. Npv profile ni Project S at ni Project L. Okay. The blue one, guys, the blue one is your Project L. Okay. Exercise nyo na i-plot to, ha. So I'm just discussing this now kasi in the interest of time. So ito si Project L, guys, yung blue. Okay, this is the indifference point ito. Kung saan sila nag-intersect, di ba? Di ba dyan sila nag-intersect, no? Okay. Alright, here, tingnan natin kung mas maganda kung nakaano to. Okay, yan, mas maganda. Mas kita. Alright, so if you take a look at this one, guys, this is the indifference point. This is 11.97% and an NPV of 42.84. Ito yun. Now, to the right of this, so below 11.97%, we would be better off choosing Project L, yung blue. So ito si Project L to, yung blue. Okay, so if the weighted average cost of capital is less than 11.97%, choose Project L. Okay, next. If the weighted average cost of capital is greater than 11.97%, then choose Project S. Kasi si S, mas mataas yung NPV niya kaysa kay Project L. Okay, sandali lang, hindi natin makita yung line. Ibabalik ko lang dun sa dati. Okay. Okay, wala yung hindi ko nalagay yung vertical axis, ano. Okay, so ilagay ko lang yung mga axis, no? Format axis. Ilagay natin yung the axis options. Okay, ayaw, ayaw. Anyway. No control Z ko. Ayan, okay. Binili ko lang sa dati, no? Okay, ito yung horizontal line natin. Okay, so what's our decision rule? For if the weighted average cost of capital is less than 11.97%, choose Project L. If the WACC is between 11 is greater than 11.97 hanggang 14.94%, choose Project S. Okay? Greater than 14.49%, wala tayong pipiliin kasi parehong negative na yung net present value natin. At 11.97%, we are indifferent. No? It doesn't matter whether we choose Project S or Project L. Okay, so yun ang conclusion natin dito, no, sa net present value profile na to. Yan, no? For WACC below 11.975, choose Project L. At 11.975, indifferent tayo any of the two projects. Above 11.1975 until 14.489, choose Project S. Beyond 14.489, reject both projects. So this is our conclusion for our NPV profile. Okay? All right. I think we got it on time, no? Okay, so this ends, guys, our discussion on capital budgeting. Okay, take note, please. May question lang ako, guys. I hope you're okay sa lampas na pala talaga tayo, no? 7:45 na pala. Hanggang 7:30 lang pala tayo. Okay, so on Saturday, guys, yung ano natin, exam natin ng 2 o'clock. All right. So thank you so much, guys, for staying on, and I'll see you on Wednesday for our last session where we discuss chapter 9, yung cost of capital. Okay. Thank you so much, and may mag-stop recording.